Hi guys. How long has it been about eating people? It's an incredibly sensitive and terrifying issue. Normal people don't even think about it. Don't say do it. However, for pervert killers, or people in the situation, if there is no other way, it is something else. Uruguay is one of the smallest countries in South America. It's between Brazil and Argentina. Montevideo, the capital of Uruguay. There's a school that's famous for its football team. This team has won the national championship twice. It's considered the most popular football team in Uruguay. In September, a night 70 captains won the chance so your team can join international matches. All the members of the team are students, so the cost, of course, it must be saved as much as possible. Management hired an Air Force plane. Uruguay is AFH-27D monoplane. Flights cost just $1,600 for a total of 40 seats. The team has only 30 people, so there are 10 seats left. So the members' relatives were invited to accompany her. On the flight, most of the passengers are players and their relatives make up the intimate atmosphere fun as festival. The captain of the flight was Philodotus, an experienced pilot. He and co-pilot La Gulara make this flight. There were a total of 5 crew members and 40 passengers. The total number of people on board was 45. The original happy atmosphere that everyone can't imagine. What happens next will be a tragedy. Shock the world. 12 tense years a ripe 7. 2 planes depart from the airport, Carrasco in Uruguay. Scheduled direct flight to Santiago, Chile with a long flight distance of 1,300 kilometers. But that afternoon, a storm suddenly appeared in the border area. The plane was forced to make a temporary landing in Mendoza, Argentina. This team stayed here overnight, and by 2 p.m. on October 13th, when the weather is good, they just continue their journey. Although the distance from Mendoza to Santiago is only 400 kilometers, but the problem is they have to fly over the Andes, where the average altitude is up to 6,900 meters. This plane is not the type to fly high, so the pilot chose to fly around the lower mountains. This is a familiar route Captain Philodotus has done many times, and there's no problem. At 3 p.m., the plane flew over the Planchon Mountains at an altitude of 2,500 meters. North. Captain Pallas, just like the other passengers, having a good conversation in the cabin. Through the gaps of the clouds, you can see the majestic mountains. It makes everyone very excited. Pallas realized the plane was very close to the top of the mountain, so close that you can see every leaf on the tree. The anxiety that filled Pallas' mind when you hear a scream, large of the captain from the driving chamber in front. Elevation, 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 elevation. But before I could do anything, a crack has cracked. In the blink of an eye, Pallas saw the tail disappear. Passengers in the tail area of the same seat is sucked out. Then in a split second, Pallas feels like everything in front of her is opening up. It's like sitting on a ship roller coaster fast down the cliff. Your body is knocked out. On the contrary, the force is to grant. It made me temporarily lose consciousness. A few minutes after waking up, Pallas realized she was still sitting in her chair because your seatbelt held you tight. I tried to look outside, and then I saw this horrible scene. The plane only had the main body. The other parts are completely gone. The plane is like a broken vase. VA touched the mountain and broke to pieces. A few minutes earlier, the plane flew over the mountains, Planchon, and prepared to turn north. Because the weather was bad that day, thick clouds obscure the view. The pilots could not identify the terrain below. There is no GPS system on the plane, so they can only rely on speed estimate to calculate the current position. It's about 4:02 p.m. Based on previous flying experience, the pilot thought the plane had crossed the Andes and lowered the altitude from 5,500 meters to 4,200 meters. But they didn't take into account the opposite wind reduces the speed of flight until the plane goes through the clouds. They are horrified. I found myself in the middle of the Andes, and there's a mountain in front. Realize the deadly mistake. The captain rushed to raise the altitude, but now it's too late. The plane couldn't pull up in time. At 3:24 p.m., the top of the plane passed over the mountain, but the tail VA hit hard. The entire fuselage broke apart. Main body and the rest of the passengers were pushed below speed. 370 kilometers VA force touching, causing the rows of seats in the compartment to crowd together. Crashed on the spot. The plane crashed into the valley and slid a long way to stop. The accident killed 5 people on the spot. 7 people were thrown off the plane as it crashed. Of the remaining 33, many people are seriously injured. Everyone is panicking, But thanks to the unity of the football team, Captain Police quickly stand out, helped people calm down, and find a way through the accident. He asked to save the living, at the same time sending members with medical knowledge for the victim. They found Captain Philodates dead on the spot, and the first officer, La Gulara, is still flying. Even though the chest was pierced by the panel, he kept repeating a sentence. We went through Carico. We went through Carico. The plane crashed into a horseshoe-shaped valley. It's surrounded by high mountains. There's only one side, a sheer cliff. Those who are alive, it's obviously impossible to get out on foot. The plane's communication system unable to send a distress signal. Based on the dying co-pilot's words, people think they've come close to the Carico area. In Chile, it's very close to the city. Everyone hopes that someone will come to the rescue soon, but they don't know at all. The coming days were a terrifying ordeal for them. It's worse than the Thai incident. This plane crash. After a few hours of waiting, everybody's starting to notice something unusual. Where they're standing is 3,500 meters above sea level. Many people start showing symptoms of high altitude shock. By midnight, the temperature plummets below -30 degrees Celsius, whereas most people only wear autumn clothes. Standing outside for a long time can freeze to death. Bellis quick steering. Everybody moves the whole thing into the fuselage. Use VA to seal the broken tail. But the night wind is strong. Anything that's just been built is blown away. Immediately people who have broken their bones in pain, all night without stopping to moan. With such harsh conditions, the first night after the accident, 5 more people died. The number of survivors dropped to a total of 28. By noon on October 14th, the second day after the accident, a plane was flying over a mountainous area where the group is staying. We're all excited. Unfortunately, the plane just flies by without stopping. 2 other planes appeared that afternoon, but it's like the Kia plane completely ignored it. Someone below is asking for help. In the following days, group of people alive, he tried many ways to save himself. They're using SOS-style furniture on the fuselage, and also put letters on the ground with VA, but all efforts are in vain. They're beginning to realize a desperate truth. The plane couldn't see them from above. In fact, the night of the accident, Uruguay and Chile deploy up to 11 planes to search for the plane, as well as victims in the Andes area where the plane crashed. It's a valley of snow. Light is hard to reflect, so finding the white plane in the middle of the snowy mountains, it's no different than finding the bottom of the sea. The longer the time, the higher the severity of the survival problem. At an altitude of 3,500 it's like there's no plants or animals. When checking luggage, a group of people who only found 8 bars of chocolate, a fruit jam box, a few almonds, and a few bottles of wine. Under normal conditions, one needs at least 1,500 every day to maintain energy. But in extreme weather, the body needs to consume many times more calories. To solve the problem, the police decided to adopt strict food distribution. Everyone gets to eat a very small amount of food. For example, on the first day, just ate a little chocolate. You suck the chocolate outside, save the rest to eat. In the next 2 days, when the food runs out, a group of people began to try cooking materials belts, like even shoes soles for eating. But there's nothing that can help them fight hunger. Rubbing alcohol in the stomach. Severe hunger and thirst, to the point where many people start hallucinating. A hearty steak. But when I wake up, in front of them was snow and ice. There's no tet steak. The horror. To one day in mid-October in extreme hunger. One in the last group. It says what we all think about, but dare not utter. We need to eat meat. The bodies of the people on the plane. That night, the remaining survivors in the fuselage to start talking about eating people. They know this is the only way to survive, but that also means they will have to eat their friends or relatives. The air in the plane was very heavy and quiet. Finally, a pious-looking man stood up and said, "Maybe God wants us to survive." They left these bodies. "If I die, and my body can keep you alive, I am ready to accept." The words of the man shake the minds of many. In the darkness of the cabin, they all made a terrible deal, but full of humanity. "If I die, use my body to live on." All the survivors silently agreed, but no one starts by eating the bodies of my close friends. Instead, they're looking at people who have died before, including Captain Philadelphia and First Officer La Gulara, people who are considered the main cause of the accident. That night a group of people, when it's dark, but quietly to the far corner of the snowy mountains, where the bodies of the victims unlucky person died in the accident. They start cutting meat from the thighs, divided into small pieces by matchbox size. This meat is put on a board outside to freeze naturally. No one says anything. They just eat silently, even though the feeling of terror enveloped food from the body. It also helps them to survive for a while. Until 2nd October, the number of survivors is 2 to 7, and they're surrounded by about 10 bodies. They found a radio in the cabin, and hear the news from outside. After many unsuccessful searches, the rescue team concluded no one survived the accident. This news almost brought the whole team down, but Nicholas, one person in the group, spoke up. Here's the good news. What that means: we can't rely on another AI. We have to find our own way out of here. His words softened the atmosphere of despair. Their only hope right now is the radio, the co-pilot mentioned. I heard it's in the tail. But it's impossible for the whole team to move. They decided to put resources into a healthy group to increase survival. When you start preparing for the journey, a sudden avalanche hits, buried the entire plane. Many people are buried immediately. It took 2 days of digging. Those who are still alive can escape the snow. But this disaster took 8 more lives, including Nicholas. The previous person encouraged the whole group, and some medical students have taken care of them. A group of people who suffer and pick out new people to lead them out, which has Ponodo. He lost his mother and sister in the accident. The 3 healthiest people selected, carrying homemade snow-resistant glass, start looking for the tail in the east. After 2 days, they found the tail about a mile from the main cabin. But hope was quickly dashed when they realized the radio equipment is badly damaged. Can't be repaired. Our ADIO equipment of the aircraft 115 volts AC power, while the device at the tail end only supply 24 volts one way. Despite trying for days, they still can't figure out how to make it work again. As of mid-November, time is stuck. The group's detention lasted until the 30th day. The IS mind and body are almost paralyzed. They're used to eating thighs and organs. Some people even eat their brains. November 15th, Arturo Lagara dies of infection. After 3 days of fighting, Rafael Arson Varon also died from an untreated wound. A man named Takoti, because I couldn't overcome my cannibalism obsession, very little and lose up to 25 he eventually kilograms. Died of hunger. In December, the number of people who survived the flight was only 16. They continued to suffer in despair, waiting for each day to pass, with the risk of death only increasing, not decreasing. Up to 12/10 it was the 6th day after that group of people got stuck in the mountains. Canessa and Antonio decided to try one last time to find support. Recall the description of the co-pilot. A group of people who think that if you get through the chain, in the west, they're going to the Carico region of Chile. BO people use materials from sew into a large sleeping bag. Everyone carries a small amount dried meat made from dead bodies. Even though there's no climbing equipment or any previous experience, they still began their journey across the high-altitude materials up to 4,500 meters. The journey took 3 days full of space, and they finally made it to the top of the mountain. But because I saw the scene in front of me, all hope is falling apart. Instead of the flat land that leads to Chile, they only see the endless snowy mountains. The information the co-pilot provided was false. The plane never flew over the Carico area. It's still deep in the Andes. Parado didn't give up though. I would rather die on the way than wait to die in despair. Candle. He also took the Spirit and continued the journey, leaving Antonio back to camp with other living friends. 2 people start leaving along a valley. Their every move was as heavy as a zombie. They really have no hope. We can only try to move forward. After 7 days of continuous movement, noticed the scene began to change. The grey stones gradually replaced by the green of the grass. On the 10th day they saw a small stream. And then the miracle. In the distance they saw a rider, looking at them with astonishment. So after 10 days of travelling nearly 54 kilometers, in a state of near exhaustion, they get help from the locals. 20 to 10th years arrived 70 to afternoon that day, with Parado and Candesi information provided. Chilean Air Force sending 3 helicopters to the scene. The remaining 14 survivors, including Antonio, to be safely rescued. 72 days of survival in minus 30 degrees. No hope, but they survived. 2 of the victims overcame all obstacles across the Andes and bring back the miracle for the rest of us. This event quickly shocked the entire world. It's called a miracle under the Andes, because the psychological damage is too great. There's almost no talk of eating people to survive. When answering an interview, they just said they ate cheese and some leftovers. However, the search team, there were a lot of bodies cut at the scene. There's a picture of a human being in it, only half a leg left. This image is then sold by the land for to make public opinion explode. Things quickly add up. The argument moves in the negative direction. Contrast to the previous exclamation, many began to condemn the 16 survivors. They think they don't deserve to be saved. Even, it's said that the story of the miracle under the Andes, there's actually nothing to celebrate. It's a massacre. It is believed that the stronger kill the weak to eat. A magazine that publishes sensational photos. He even showed a picture of a mutilated body on the cover with an ironic headline, "Has God forgiven them?" The survivors have gone from heroes to monsters. They're shunned by people who are offended. Even the families of those who died turn your back on them too. The friends you've lost don't just lie in the snow. It's dragging the survivors into another hell. Wave of outrage 18/1. Canessa and Ponodo, with the other survivors, decided to face public opinion. They're holding a public press conference, recount details, what they've been through for 72 days, from harsh trials to a vow of sacrifice, the selves of your dead friends, to save the rest. Parado said, "Some people think what we're doing is right. Some people think it's wrong, but we don't care. We trusted each other, fight for each other, and no one has the right to judge us." The sincerity of their stories made public. It changed even the Pope and many public figures. He also expressed sympathy for the survivors, and over time, the wind died down. Every year on the day of the accident, families of the victims held a memorial service, and a black stele erected in remembrance. The people who died mark where they died, and forever lie in a valley of cold snow. It's different from people with severe psychological trauma. Parade and some other survivors. I have been back here many times. Maybe it's just the same AI that went through 72 days of terror. They really understand each other deeply. A bond that transcends intimacy and friendship. After Parado became a famous speaker, regularly encouraged those who are in trouble. Canessa becomes a therapist, heart and saved the lives of many children. The other survivors also spend the rest of your life helping the community. In the memoir of a survivor, there's a memorable saying, "There's probably an Andes in every human being." It's a symbol of despair. It is a symbol of hope. In 2013, peaceful town Danville, Kentucky. This is where Andrew Hawkins Smith lives happily with his family. He lives with his parents, Michael and Angie, with her little sister Nelmy, 13 months old. Michael meets Angie for the first time in a church, and from that moment on, the love between them grew. Angie, she was a good girl and Michael's first love. He gave me a full and happy love. Their lives are filled with joy and happiness. It's even better now that they have 2 kids. Andrew is 9 years old and Naomi is 13 months old. To spend a lot of time together, Michael and Angie decide to homeschool Andrew. This allows the whole family to get together more attached. Every morning the whole family goes to the store together. Michael's Pon and Angie. It's a daily habit. However, one fateful morning, everything suddenly changed, bringing the Hawksmith family into a horrific tragedy that no eye can imagine floating. The child's call for help. At 9:17 a.m. the 20th of September 2013, the 911 call center in Kentucky got a call. Over there is 9-year-old Andrew Hawksmith. In a panic, you whispered over the phone to report the murder of the robber. It's happening at my home store in Denville. It's unfortunate. While the operator tries to collect 10 pieces of information, it makes the air more tense than ever. Andrew and his sister were forced to remain silent because any noise can make the name. The robbers discovered their location. Immediately, the operator relies on the signal to determine the location and send a patrol to the scene. Within 6 minutes, the police officers were there. Be aware of the urgency of the situation. They tried to open the door. The door was locked from the inside. There's no other way. They're forced to smash the glass and break it. And the first thing they saw was a big trail of blood right in front. An officer shared, "Even though I was mentally prepared, but the scene in front of us is terrifying. That I'll never forget in my life." When you get into them, 3 bodies were quickly found on the floor. However, the problem, most importantly, they don't know whether the killer is in the store or not. But I can't wait forever. They finally decided quickly, cleaning the scene and looking for the 9-year-old under the guidance of the operator. And finally, under the guidance of the operator, they found two kids hiding in a corner of the office. Both were immediately taken to the police station, despite the panic, but luckily they weren't hurt. Then a French doctor. He was called in to conduct an examination. 3 bodies found, 2 men and a woman. But the scene is complicated because the store contained guns and ammunition. It's highly likely that the weapon and the cargo were mixed up. This makes the investigation very difficult. The first body to be discovered was a woman lying nearby. Counter. The second body is a man. On the opposite side of the counter, there's a blood trail nearby. The third body was another man, located in the back area. Police suspect may have been moved to the location. You can't see it from the front door. All 3 victims were shot multiple times, maybe even when you fall down. Bullet casings at the scene. The weapon was a caliber gun, 20 to light years. To grandmothers of 2 children, Chandler and Barbara, rushed to the scene to see if our children, is it safe or not? But from a distance, they saw the yellow tape in the back of the car. The police get closer. They were attacked by doctors. Stop them from getting close to the scene. They both completely collapsed because they know their children are no more. The first 2 victims were in front of the store. Identified as Michael and Angie Smith is the store owner. They're Andrew and Naomi's parents. The other body is 60-year-old Dan Smith, a regular customer to buy and sell gold here. Suspicious details. A look from the scene. It looks like a botched robbery by the pawn shop. They are easily the target of thieves stealing property. However, a detail in the scene, it doesn't fit with this theory. A suitcase full of Don's money. Smith's still on the counter. Mike and Smith's wallet. It remains on the victim. And $1,000 in the cashier's drawer. If this is a robbery, why didn't the killer take the money? And if this wasn't a robbery, what was the motive? This made the police suspicious. Victims can be targeted for a reason other than robbery. If this is an assassination, is the target Dan Smith? Dan Smith is a gold trader. He used to carry a bag full of cash. His wife said, "You always have a fixed route. On some days of the week, withdraw money at the bank and go to the pawn shop." According to the route provided by the victim's wife, went to the store. The staff there told me, the day the incident happened, Smith walked in with a familiar briefcase. Chat, have fun with the woman at the cashier as always. Less than an hour later, he was murdered. News of the murder, fast land transmission throughout the town and surrounding areas. It makes everyone shocked. Never a carpet. That's what happened in this quiet little town, where everyone reported on the case. 2 children have now lost their parents. In just one morning, the whole town was in a wave of anger. They're asking the police to find the killer quickly to restore justice to the 2 children. According to the police, the suspect in this case apparently escaped garage through the door, leaving the scene, and disappear in an alley without a trace. The killer is still outside the law. While the police, it is impossible to determine the motive. The suspect brought the investigation to a standstill. After all, who wants to? They hurt both families and took away the parents. The suspect appeared. When the investigator is at a standstill, an unexpected call opened up an important clue. This person said, after posting on Facebook, read about the murder at the pawn shop in Denville, Kentucky, he immediately thought of a friend, Alan Cate, in his memory. The person who owns that store is Alan Cate. I can't think more. I'll call him right away. And even more suspicious is when the caller reveals a long-time friend of mine had words. Hard to understand about this. Immediately after receiving the information to the person conducting the investigation, Michael and Angie. I knew the priest, Cate, while working as a young local pastor. However, the income from the ministry is not enough for Michael raising a family, and he shared with Alan on the need to find another source of income. It's at this point that Pastor Cate makes a compelling offer, is to open a pawn shop. Known outside the ministry, Cate also owns and operates pawn shops. Normally, pastors and pawn shops, it's not two easy things to combine. However, the priest, Cate, has a special passion for precious metals, videotape, CDs and other items. For you, life is a mixture between the Bible and these properties. Although the priest, Cate, loves God and preach every Sunday at the county churches, Pulaski, you can't resist the charm of money, especially gold. Under the guidance of Pastor Cate, Tomorrow I joined the business and started working at the ABC Go Pawn Shop. Games with some branches. With the new business, their lives are growing. Not long after, the family welcomed the birth of Naomi. Made Hogan Speed's family extremely happy. After the investigation, the police found out that Pastor Kate lives there. Sam Rest is about a 50-minute drive from the crime scene. However, a strange coincidence is that Denville on the day of the murder. On September 20th, he drove more than 43 miles to a drugstore to get prescription drugs for one, not a regular customer of the store. When asked about being there, Danville on the day of this incident, "No, you don't hesitate. Admit I went there to buy medicine for my wife." He described every little detail throughout the journey that day for the police. But what's strange is Ireland's comments on the case. He commented with basic, "Michael and Smith are just bystanders." But soon he added it, "But they're not innocent. They cost me a lot of money." Meanwhile, the investigator continued to delve into his life and previously discovered he is the full owner of the pawn shop. Denville, however, due to being in debt and poor financial management, he was forced to transfer ownership back to the Kelsey family. All suspicion is now on Pastor Kate, but there's still a problem. At the time of the case, he said he was buying medicine for his wife. If his alibi is confirmed, there's a picture of the suspect on the security camera. You can be completely removed from the suspicion. The investigators were immediately sent to record from the drugstore that Reverend Ireland came to get the medicine. The investigators said, if you were actually there at the time of the incident, you can't be a suspect. However, after reviewing the pharmacy's security cameras, the police found the priest dead. Appeared at 9:24 a.m., 8 minutes after the murders took place. This makes it likely that he was present at both locations. It's impossible at the same time. Evidence. This exception can completely eliminate the list of main suspects and deflect the entire investigation. However, there is only one person that the police and expectation in providing clues about what happened in the morning. That day was Andrew, 9-year-old boy, and also the one who called 911 on the day of the case. If Andrew, you can provide any evidence that proves the pastor was actually at the pawn shop. It's not a pharmacy. The case may be clarified. According to Andrew, September 20th started like every other day. The Hockersmith family arrived. The store opens at 9 a.m. Andrew playing toys in the corner of the room while your parents prepare for work. Not long after the first customer arrived, that's Dan Smith, a familiar customer of your house, while Andrew's father talked to Smith, your mother Angie, coaxing baby Naomi on her hands near the cash register. Everything is normal, but then a man walked in. This guy looks pretty weird, Andrew remembered. The man began to draw his gun. The voice grew louder and screamed all down on the floor. Immediately, and everyone did it because they were scared. Andrew, mom and boy Naomi, shivering, hugging each other in the corner of the room. They peek in. The intruder fired 8 shots. In the midst of chaos, Andrew saw his father fall down. The killer's gun. Mike, in the last moments of my life I tried to pray to him, stop, but it's too late. Not finished yet, the gun immediately turned to Smith. Finished Smith. He started looking for Angie and the kids. I know it's hard to survive. Angie turned to her 2 children, the only hiding place in the store. Andrew told me. My mom told me to run out the back. I crawled into the back office. Put your sister and sit right next to her. While hiding in the office, Andrew heard 4 more shots. Then it all fell silent. Both Andrew and Naomi tried to keep quiet. Andrew said in a painful voice, I remember crawling to the door. I saw my mother lying in a pool of blood. Right now, protecting Naomi became Andrew's only goal. He hurriedly picked up the phone in the office. Called 911. I hope that someone will arrive in time before the attacker discovered the hideout. And when you see the pictures, then you point out he's the one. Professor Kate, a 9-year-old boy, called 911 and announced that his family had been killed. But what really moved us was, that's what he did before he called. A choking cop who carried his sister into the office. Use your own body to protect her. He's a real hero. Thanks to courage, ability to think quickly and have a sharp memory. Andrew's testimony, the alibi of a lawyer, it started to collapse. The police realized that 10 clues obtained immediately after the murder to fit now. The pastor owned a silver minivan. Right before and after the shooting, A camera security recorded a picture of a similar car loitering around the pawn shop. Andrew's secret call to 911 provided a landmark. Important time. The police made sure the priest. It's completely portable from the store to the pharmacy. Without this evidence, he may have escaped, thanks to the alibi at the pharmacy. The 10th of September 2013, just 19 days after the massacre, police have gathered enough evidence to arrest Pastor Kate. They issued a search warrant for Bas' house, his church and pawn shop in Samaras. An investigator pretended to be a client and approached the cat. Take the opportunity to search the store. While checking, he discovered a box. Equipment can turn into silencer too. It's completely consistent with the theory that silencer used in the murder. This explains it clearly. Audio harm. That's what Andrew heard when his parents were shot. In addition, the police also found bullet shells is used. Removed it's from exactly the same as the bullet casing, with a beer shot, with bullet tracks right outside the pawn shop. This confirms for sure he trained before he committed the murder. The pastor was eventually arrested at the store, without any resistance. However, what makes the public angry is his bravery. Just a few days ago, on Friday, he killed innocent victims. And then Sunday, he can still calmly walk up to the pulpit, preaching in front of 2 children, the children of the people he killed. Does he have any conscience or not? Its greed and selfishness has completely clouded the mind. When Kate was arrested, Hogan Smith family and Dan Smith family, I can finally breathe in relief. Avoid the victim's family. It's been a long and painful trial. The prosecution made a plea deal. Let Kate avoid the death penalty. While the court prepares for Kate's sentencing, Andrew in great pain. I found my own way to express my feelings. You start painting and share deep thoughts through the pages of comics. Andrew just faced the pain that no AI could. Imagine that fateful day. Andrew proved he's not just like his parents. You were brave to protect your sister and take me to safety. Call for help in time. Help the case be solved quickly. And more importantly, all that time, your parents are there to protect Andrew and Naomi. I believe it is. Andrew shared that everyone says you look like your father. It's not just about looks, but the behavior is the same. And Naomi, she looks exactly like her mother. I feel so grateful for what I have. In a way, I feel like you and I are living. Continue the lives of your parents. The 26th of May 2017, on Andrew's 13th birthday, agreement between the carpenter and the prosecutor are officially confirmed. Kate was sentenced to life without grace, and he'll spend the rest of his life in prison to pay for the crime. In the cold-blooded hands of the murderer, the Hogan Smith family could not survive. But the most important thing is that they succeeded. Protecting your children. Whatever you sow, reap the fruit. Every action we take will have consequences. Greed and selfishness, not just harm to others. It's also destroying the person who has those feelings. Proof is an end that has been paid for. However, even though life is full of trials and tribulations, people can still find peace as they learn to overcome the pain. Like Andrew, despite the huge loss, but I still have my spirit, because family love is always on my heart.